All right, ready to dive back into a practical empath.
Always. Where are we headed this time?
Chapter 2, Challenges. You know Swain doesn't pull any punches.
Yeah, after the PEP pep talk of Chapter 1, this will be interesting.
So to recap, for anyone just joining us, PEP stands for Practical Empathy Practice.
It's Swain's whole system for communication, listening and speaking to others, and even yourself.
Right, and Chapter 1 really laid out the potential benefits, didn't it?
Big time. Less anxiety, dealing with anger better, stronger relationships, even intuition. Who wouldn't want that?
But this chapter dives into the reality that it's not always sunshine and roses.
Yeah, no magic wand here. It's a process. Swain makes that super clear.
Like you don't just finish learning PEP and suddenly you're an empathy guru.
Exactly. He talks about integration stages. It's a constant learning curve.
Makes sense. I mean, think about anything worth mastering. Takes time and effort.
And it can get messy, especially in relationships.
Ooh, yeah, that's where I can see things getting tricky.
Big time. Swain points out that if one person's all in on PEP, but their partner isn't,
That's got to cause friction. Imagine trying to use all this new empathetic language.
and the other person is just staring at you blankly.
Totally. And it's even worse if they're not exactly the empathetic type to begin with.
Oh, recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
The book actually warns about this, saying that early on, the person practicing PEP might accidentally sound, well, kind of fake.
Or like they're trying to manipulate the other person.
Yeah, and it's the opposite of what PEP is about, but it can happen, especially if the other person isn't meeting them halfway.
You'd feel like you were speaking different languages. And resentment builds on both sides.
Absolutely. And then Swain adds another layer to this, the now I see my unmet needs thing.
Okay, what's that about?
It's like, as you practice PEP, you get more in tune with your own feelings, right?
Mhm.
Your values.
So you start to see where those needs aren't being met in your relationships.
Exactly. Which can be good because awareness is the first step.
But also kind of overwhelming, right? If you suddenly see all these gaps.
Totally. And the beginner mistake is blaming your partner. Like it's their fault you're unhappy.
Then actually nobody can meet all your needs.
Right. More experienced PEP folks, they get that. But getting there takes time.
And that leads to the next challenge, I bet. The giver and the taker dynamic.
Bingo. The PEP partner, they're trying, they're listening, being empathetic.
But they feel like they're getting nothing back.
Drained, resentful, like they're doing all the work.
And then it turns into blame, which just makes everything worse. So what's the answer?
Well, we'll get into solutions later, but Swain highlights another common hurdle for beginners. Suddenly, you're hyper-aware of how everyone is talking.
Oh, yeah. All the negative blaming stuff people say without even realizing it.
And you want to jump in and fix it. Don't say should, say this instead.
Which, like he says, usually backfires. It's like you're
Yes.
trying to teach a pig to sing. Annoys the pig, waste your time.
And then there's the urge to evangelize. You find something great, you want everyone to do it.
But with PEP, bombarding people with the jargon won't win them over.
Nope. Lead by example, that's what Swain suggests. Let people see the benefits through your actions.
Makes sense. Okay, what about the slowed response time thing? I'm curious about that.
This is where things get tricky. Because you're trying to be mindful, choose your words carefully,
So you're pausing more, thinking before you speak.
which can feel weird to other people. Like you're not being genuine or you're overthinking it.
Could even create distance if they think you're not being spontaneous anymore.
It's a real challenge. Self-awareness is key. And open communication. Hey, I'm working on this. Bear with me.
Okay, one last thing Swain brings up that I wanted to touch on. The whole PEP sounds manipulative criticism.
Yeah, that's a common one. People hear about feelings, needs. They jump to conclusions.
Like you're trying to guilt trip them or something. But Swain's really clear that manipulation is the opposite of PEP's goal.
For sure. He says it himself. Anyone can twist any communication system for bad purposes.
It's not the tool, it's the intent.
Right. Like a hammer, you can build with it or you can break things.
So with PEP, it comes down to whether you're using it to connect authentically or to control people.
And Swain actually says he developed a kind of sixth sense for spotting the manipulators. Spent so long studying PEP, he could see right through them.
So for the people approaching it with sincerity, it's about building bridges, not walls. Which is a good segue because those sample conversations he includes in the chapter, they really show PEP in action.
Oh, yeah. Maybe a little clinical, he admits that, but they get to the heart of how PEP can change the whole tone of a conversation.
I want to break those down.
Let's do it. So, conversation 1, he calls it frustration with lack of reciprocated empathy. It starts with Lee saying, I've been trying to be kind to you, but you never reciprocate or try to understand me. This is so frustrating.
Oof, yeah, you can feel the tension there.
But look at Jesse's response. They don't get defensive. They say, is it disappointing when you don't get empathetic responses because you value being deeply understood?
Well, they're trying to get at what's behind the anger.
Exactly. Instead of focusing on the blame, they're going right to the feeling and the need that's not being met. One of PEP's core principles is trying to understand the other person's perspective.
Even if you don't like how they're acting.
Right. You acknowledge their feelings, figure out what values or needs are driving those feelings. So here, Jesse's picking up on Lee's disappointment, tying it to that need to be understood.
It's subtle, but it changes the whole dynamic.
Instead of going head-to-head, you're inviting a real conversation.
Okay, so that's one example. What about conversation 2?
That one's hurt from blaming language.
Yeah.
Starts with Alex saying, all you do is criticize and blame me. It's painful being attacked instead of heard.
Yeah, you can hear the hurt in that one.
So Jamie, the other person, they say, when you hear blaming language, does it hurt because you value compassion and understanding?
Okay, so same idea. Identifying the feelings, the needs.
Right. Alex is hurting. They want compassion. Jamie's acknowledging that. Creating a space where Alex feels seen.
I like this. It's so simple, but I don't know, powerful.
It takes practice there because our instinct is to get defensive when someone's upset with us. PEP is about breaking that habit.
Respond with curiosity, not judgment.
You got it. Okay, ready for conversation 3?
Hit me.
This one's titled, Desire to Share an Exciting Experience with a Partner. It's a bit lighter. Jordan says, I wish you would skydive with me. It would improve our sex life.
Whoa, okay, where'd that come from?
Little out of left field, right? But it still shows the PEP principles at work. Casey replies with, are you feeling eager to share this with me because you value ways of bringing more excitement to our relationship?
So they're not getting caught up in the skydiving part. They're trying to understand Jordan's motivation.
Exactly. What's the need behind the request? Jordan wants to share this experience. They value excitement in the relationship. Casey gets that.
It's like saying, I might not be into skydiving, but I see why it matters to you.
And that opens the door to a real conversation about what they both want, you know, instead of just arguing about skydiving.
I'm liking this PEP stuff more and more.
Yeah.
Okay, last conversation. What we got?
This one's called Annoyance with Slowed Conversation Pace. Morgan says, our conversations take forever now with you analyzing every word. It doesn't seem natural.
Yeah, that ties back to the whole slowed response time thing.
Right. So Taylor, they're the one practicing PEP. They say, your value for spontaneity is a huge part of why I love you. Because my responses are taking as long as they do, is it annoying and frustrating?
Wow. They validated Morgan's feeling, tied it to a positive value, and took responsibility for their part in it.
That's PEP in a nutshell. Empathy, understanding, and self-awareness.
Okay, I'm sold. What's the biggest takeaway from all these conversations, would you say?
I think it's that PEP isn't about being perfect. It's about genuinely wanting to understand the other person.
Even when it's hard.
Even when you disagree, you're curious, not judgmental. You swap blame for compassion.
We should print that on a t-shirt. So what about those exercises Swain includes? He says they're for putting all this into practice.
He has a bunch, like reworking those conversations, but with your own conflicts in mind. Thinking about past arguments, how empathy could have changed things.
Basically, homework for becoming a better human.
He wants you to find those points of friction in your life and apply PEP to them.
See things from everyone's side. I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. Could change the world if enough people were on board.
Maybe someday. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty inspired right now to put this into practice.
Me too. And you know, it's okay to mess up. That's part of the process.
We're all learning. Speaking of learning, I'm noticing a theme here. Even with all these challenges, Swain doesn't make it sound hopeless, does he?
No, not at all. It's more like he's opening our eyes to a different way of dealing with conflict.
One where it doesn't have to be destructive. It can actually lead to more understanding, more connection.
Right. And it's not like you need to be some kind of saint to do this PEP stuff.
Just show up with some curiosity, a little bit of compassion.
Instead of always needing to be right, focus on connecting with the other person.
Yeah, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
I keep thinking back to that idea that PEP is a journey, not a destination.
Oh, totally. It's like, that's a good analogy. Learning to dance, maybe?
I like that.
At first, you're all clumsy, counting steps, stepping on toes, but then the music takes over. You find your flow.
And you're expressing something deeper, more authentically.
Exactly. That's PEP. It's not about reaching some level of empathy mastery. It's about embracing the process, the messiness, the growth.
And the connections you make along the way.
To everyone listening, if you're trying this PEP thing out, be patient with yourself.
It takes time.
Celebrate those small wins. And remember, even a little bit of empathy can make a huge difference.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for this deep dive.
Until next time.
Keep practicing that empathy.